like sucking, but I ain't gay.
Legit Bad Podcast.
Fuck those honkies.
Welcome to Costco. I love you.
He really knows how to suck a wiener.
Welcome back to Legit Bat. I'm Joe. Jen is with me.
Hello.
Did we have anything to say before the show started? I can't remember.
Ben isn't here?
Well, that's not new. Ben is still, doing his life and stuff, so we'll forgive him until he comes back, and then we'll talk shit about him to his face. Our guest tonight is JT Follows JC, aka Joe, but everybody knows him by his online handles, of course. And he just changed his podcast name, not the YouTube channel, the podcast name from Decoding Babylon to JT Follows JC, which is a great idea because for some reason in 2025 people still have a problem finding people on the internet.
Yeah.
So if you just have one broad username across everything, it makes it a lot easier. So one of our favorite people to talk to, though. It's always fun chopping it up with him and what he does over at his show. But if the listeners have not heard of you before, brief, 10 seconds or less. Go.
Okay, I'm just a normal dude, and I'm a Christian guy, and I'm a conspiracy guy. That's pretty much how people kind of probably relate to me. And I started making short videos, and now I'm making podcasts, and I've even made a movie. And was that 10 seconds?
Yeah, it's close enough. Tell us about that, because I don't remember you talking about that last time. You made a movie.
Yeah, we did. We made a movie called Ancient Angels, and you probably can tell by the name, it's a play off Ancient Aliens. It's kind of the Christian retort to everything is aliens. No, it's all Nephilim and angels. So that's kind of our deal.
I did hear you talking about that on one of your shows. That's right. I thought it was another podcast you were doing, but where's that available?
It's available on Vimeo. You can go on to ancientangelsmovie.com and you can find it there. And it's $9.99, I think. It's reasonably priced. It was investment for us to make it. So yeah, I think it's kind of like if you're curious about megaliths and giants and angels, yeah, it's like that show, except for it's not less stupid.
Yeah, I mean, I would hope not. I mean, that Ancient Aliens, I've watched like a handful of episodes, and by that point, we'd already gone way deeper than all that stuff, and it just seemed, like you said,
And there's
kinda
never any
stupid.
answers. It's kind of like unsolved mysteries. They're just
still
kind
going.
of telling
They're still
you a
making
bunch
episodes.
of things that people can already find out about and then not really giving any reasonable
They
answer
just go,
as to what
"I
it
don't
is.
know."
But it could be aliens.
Well, I think that's a lot of those shows, like paranormal shows, and I know like Discovery Channel, not maybe Discovery Channel, probably Discovery and History Channel. I'll have lots of those shows where it's like, oh, we're looking for Bigfoot, and then we're on we're hot on the trail, and of course, do they find one at the end? No. Obviously,
No.
they never find the Bigfoot, but they find something that's close to it, and there's a lot of mystery. But I think we can explain lots of things, and I think that's why I made the movie, was because before I ever got into content making, maybe my first little kind of dipping my toe into the conspiracy world was like, I liked that show, not because I liked aliens or I believed in aliens. I just thought the megalith stuff was weird. And
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
so I thought that was like, whoa, that's really, as a Christian guy, I was like, well, I don't really know what I do with that. It's like the timelines they're talking about. And I really didn't know how they did it until I started to really read my Bible again and read like the book of Enoch. And I'm like, oh, the gods they were talking about were the angels, and the people they said built it were giants. So it's like, that's what the Bible says. So yeah.
And I'm not trying to go all zeitgeisty where, it's all the same story told in a different way, but a lot of it kind of is, especially very specific stories. And and I'm not saying it was like predating the Bible. I don't know about any of that, but there's so many, like there's global flood myths. Sorry, not global. Earth-wide.
Well, you can say
floods.
worldwide,
Yeah,
right?
there you go. But there's all kinds of different myths and stuff about the flood besides the Bible, and I think even science is coming to kind of an idea, at least not mainstream, but I've heard a lot of different scientists saying that they actually think there was a great deluge. So yeah, it's not just one book saying that. I mean, there's so many different And that's just one of the stories. There's plenty of other things. Like there's parallels with the Epic of Gilgamesh, and I mean, take your pick. That's a different show, though. I did want to kind of spin off on the angels in. Sorry, I already forgot what it was called.
Ancient Angels.
Sorry. What do you think about this? All this, supposed disclosure that's coming out, which most of us in this community think is utter horseshit. But what do you think about it? Because I'm bored by it.
Yeah, I think that it is funny how like the conspiracy theory group tends to view anything the government tells us. It's like that we're like, oh, you're hiding aliens. And then all of a sudden they're like, oh, there's aliens. And we're like, you guys are lying.
Yep.
Yeah.
You two guys are totally lying. Yeah. So I think that to me, it's like, it's weird, obviously, growing up in a, I grew up with like Star Wars and ET and all the stuff like everyone else did. And then, but we're always told by our government, oh, that's all it is. It's just fiction. Don't worry about it. You didn't see anything in the sky. It was totally normal. It was a weather balloon or something like that.
Swamp gas.
And then one day, really recently, they said, oh, yeah, by the way, there's UFOs. And then there's a UFO guy at the Pentagon saying, maybe all these UFOs come from a mothership in our galaxy. And you're like, what? And it's so weird how like so few people care that they say that now. And so I think that if you have any understanding of like how the world works at this point, you realize most of the news is fake. It's propaganda. The government tells you things. They want you. They tell you things for reasons, and most of the time, it's not just because they want to tell you the truth. So I think that like, why are they telling us this now? Is the real question. And if you've read books like Along Came a Pale Horse by Bill Cooper, he straight up says that one day they're going to fake an alien invasion.
He's not the only one to say that either.
Oh no, I think he's kind of the most famous person to say. But even like Werner von Braun, like from NASA, supposedly he talked about how there's these cards like the governments of the world are going to play, and the last one was like the alien card. And it does seem like, obviously, if you can see like a guy like me who's done a lot of videos and podcasts about the predictive programming in the movies, and there's all this kind of push for like, oh, well, maybe humanity will put their differences aside and just strive for a common goal for survival, and then we'll all come together.
There's a Reagan quote to that effect.
Yeah, and obviously, and come straight, a very famous speech by Ronald Reagan from the United Nations, saying almost just that, like, oh, we could put away our differences for a common goal. And of course, like when you see movies like Independence Day, you're like, oh, that's good, right? Oh, China and America are working together. This is great. But I think that people who are aware, and then you hear like the speeches about new world orders and stuff like that, we understand like that if there was one centralized government, at the end of the day, by necessity, right, it would still lead to tyranny and bad things for common people, because you can't run a society that's so different and multicultural in different places from one central location, because it would be run poorly. And I think that's the goal, though, kind of.
I know it's always hard to tell where they're going with this, and like you said, why now, after decades of not just ignoring it, but straight out saying there are no UFOs, aliens are crazy or whatever. Yeah. All of a sudden, 2017 with the Tic Tac on the Nimitz, and that was like this slow start into the mainstream, and it still wasn't really talked about a whole lot, but that was the biggest one that I can remember in recent history. And then ever since then, it's just kind of gradually built up into this. All of a sudden, Tucker Carlson is talking about UFOs and aliens on his show, and it's making the mainstream rounds. And I think that's why people like us immediately go, "You're lying." Mm-hmm. Because why is it all of a sudden on the mainstream news? That's bizarre.
Because like JT said, like they kind of seeded it in 2017, but then COVID happened, and that just completely disconnected everybody. Everyone was so divided. Everyone turned super political. And then there was the election in 2016 that divided people, but 2020 was really bad. And then now Trump is president. People think that he's going to bring everyone together. Everyone's going to come together and be united. Everyone will be so happy. So then if this alien invasion happens, this, quote unquote alien invasion, people will want to unite even more because they feel powerful. They feel like they've been so divided. now we can come together. And then really the trick is, yeah, one world government, everyone will do it like to feel safe. Just like the Patriot Act after 9/11. Everyone was like, oh yeah, okay. We'll all come together and take off our shoes at the airport now and let everyone
United
scan
we
us to the
stand.
bone. Yeah.
Yeah, so I that's the way I see it, is because I think biblically I don't believe in aliens from other planets. What's interesting about like Tucker Carlson though, we've talked about him quite a few times on my show, just that it's interesting how many of the things he's saying are things that I've said. And like there's not a lot of disagreement with the things he said about it, because he's like that he doesn't believe they're from outer space. He believed they're from here, from like the oceans or from inside the earth and stuff I've said. He's talked about Nephilim, he's talked about spiritual forces, and I'm like, dang, that's a little bit wild that he's gone this far and this fast saying all these things. So I mean, that's my belief too, is that are there beings from other planets? No, I don't believe in other planets. I mean, I believe in like the stars and heavens and stuff like that. I believe like the planets are, by definition, they're wandering stars. I mean, if you look in the telescope, they look like stars. I don't believe they're like what NASA shows you. I know that's basically just animation when they show you like what the planets look like. I know that
It's not
based on what
basically
we're
animation.
Yeah, it's like
animation.
composite images, yeah.
They are animation. Well, I mean, obviously, it's interesting. My buddy David Shane, who's got like the most amazing telescope equipment you've ever seen. Like, I just like, dude, how much money did you spend on all this stuff? And when you see like through like Jupiter and Saturn through the telescope, it does look sort of like what they depict, but it's not quite like that. And obviously, anything you see from NASA it's all cleaned up and just completely
Airbrushed.
Yeah, it's not what it really looks like. But that being said, I don't believe that beings come from those places, and
Right.
I don't. And that's the interesting thing about like the UFO phenomenon, is that people don't ever say, "Oh, I saw it come down from outer space and it came to here." It's like it's already there. They see something in the sky that's already there. They don't know where it came from, and a lot of these things do tend to. I think a lot of the ones, especially the ones you hear like the Navy talking about, they're somewhere over the ocean. They're following the ships. They're doing. Where did they come from? They were already here. So I do believe in UFOs. I mean, it's just basically that, like, if you can't identify what you see in the sky, it's a UFO.
Right.
The sad part is that I had this conversation just actually in the last podcast, was that there was this phenomenon where we're like I'm like in a Navy town on the like Norfolk, Virginia area, and Virginia Beach. There's like big, like the biggest naval base in the whole world is in Norfolk. So there was a time where like there was these booms happening, like down at the beach, like almost all the windows shook at this one moment. And for us living in this town, we have jets flying over all the time, constantly. There's constantly things in the air. And so our natural assumption would be it was a jet going supersonic. They're not supposed to do that. They're not supposed to break the sound barrier where we're at. But we thought, well, that's probably what it was, though. But then Navy denies it. And they're like, so what is it then? And they're just like,
I mean, that sounds a lot like a couple months ago with all the drones over New Jersey and all that. I mean, the government's like, we don't know. It's not ours, but it's definitely not a different country either, but we don't know what it is. Also, they're operating legally and lawfully or whatever.
right. What did they say? They don't think they pose a threat. And you're like, oh, well, that's real comforting. Like,
Yeah.
What are you going to wait till they do something bad to
But,
realize
yeah,
that
and they're
you
talking
were
about
wrong
how
about
they
that?
weren't over any military bases, and then later they were like, oh yeah, they are over, and Mar-a-Lago, or DC or whatever. There's literally UFOs over DC or that area, like, and you could just, that's why we don't believe anything we're told anymore, is because they give you this weird lopsided sandwich to chew on, and both ends taste like something different, and you're like, what are we supposed to do with that? And then 2 months later, nobody's talking about it anymore. So is that why? Just to
I mean, I
mess with
think
our heads?
I think it's the thing. It's like I was just talking about all kinds of different conspiracies with regards to medical issues or anything. It's like it really does suck that you're like I don't want to go to TikTok to find out what's true, because obviously I might get the furthest, craziest end of the conspiracy theory realm, and then I can't even know what's true by some mainstream source because I don't believe them now. So we're kind of left to just be like, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't trust them. I definitely don't trust the crazy conspiracy theorists, but they're probably more likely right than they are because I know they're lying.
Yeah.
These people this might be their best guess. And I think that that's basically what we're left with. And I think that in this day, maybe it's confusion maybe is their goal because yeah, the drone thing was very obviously a lie. Those guys were getting dragged in front of Congress and they were like, what are they? We don't know. Like, you don't know whose they are? I mean, if you were going to get taken before Congress, it's like, wouldn't you try to find out? So
Yeah,
obviously,
aren't you
if
the
they don't,
military?
yeah, if they don't say, it's because they do know and they can't say. I mean, that's the
Right.
very obvious answer. Like, they know who they are, and more likely they're theirs.
So why wouldn't they just say that's confidential or it's a national security matter or all the normal things they usually say? But instead, they just said, I don't know.
I mean, maybe, like I said, maybe it is just to kind of like freak people out a little bit.
Yeah, to see what
Yeah.
the response is from the population.
Yeah, and I just had that same kind of talk with Ryan over at the Secret Teachings the other day, but where you're looking at the farthest out conspiracy people and then the mainstream narrative, and there's a huge chasm between those two. And it's usually somewhere down there that you have to look, and somewhere roughly in the middle to find out what's might actually be going on. We still don't really know. That's the other thing. You can be as level-headed about this as you want and still walk away scratching your head because you're like, I don't know who to believe. And that kind of brings me to I know we talk about AI a lot, but there's been a lot of things going on, especially in the last couple days with Big Daddy Trump signing a bunch of stuff. But what do you think of the AI thing? I don't think we've ever talked to you about that specifically, but Trump signs a $500 billion AI project, Stargate, which is funny because there was already a project called Stargate back in the day. But this one is supposedly for an AI grid or whatever they want to call it, Skynet, Cyberdyne. But he's going to be plunking money into that alongside Larry Ellison, who is the Oracle CEO, who is talking about his mass surveillance plans using AI, especially Sam Altman, the CEO of OpenAI, was also talking about this. Where do you think that's going, or what are your general thoughts? Is it a portal for demons?
I don't know. I mean, it's funny because obviously, full disclosure, I use AI as a tool. I mean, like I was messing with I've been messing with ChatGPT a lot. I ask it, like, that's my new Google. I ask it all the questions. I use AI to make photos for videos and stuff like that. But yeah, this is horrible. I think this is horrible. I mean, this sounds like that, like a lot of the stuff that you had from what's his name who went over to Russia? Gosh, I forget his name. What was the guy's name?
Whistleblower guy or
Yeah. Snowden. Yeah, so
Yeah.
Snowden's releasing all this stuff, and obviously after 9/11, there's talking about metadata and stuff like that. Now it's like openly saying like they're watching us all the time, and yeah, I'm not cool with that. It seems very casual to just like announce that stuff. I think that's like a big deal, and yeah, like what's up with that? I don't know. I don't know. I mean, it seems like
everybody's
that.
just numb to it now. They're so used to it. They're used to their phones watching them take a dump. They're used to, everything you do online being available to a cloud hacker somewhere. So I think everyone's just kind of like, okay, what now?
Well, they had the actually we did on my one of my recent podcasts. We were talking about CIA stuff and that Pokemon Go game. Did you guys ever see the video about that? How
I think I heard you talking about it, actually. It's pretty crazy.
yeah, that these guys were using this game basically to like 3D map like the whole world, including like inside your houses. So if you guys were playing Pokemon Go inside your house looking for Pokemon, it's like they got 3D maps of like everywhere. And you're like, dang, man. It's like, I mean, I guess that, yeah, at the same time, let's not be naive. Yeah, we have our devices. We know that if you can speak to them, then they listen when they're not even on probably now. So they do already know lots of things, but I think when they start to tell you they're doing that, it's a new level of like, this stuff is way further along than we know. Cause it's like when they talk about installing this thing, it's been here. So now they're letting us know that it's here. And like, so what are they going to do with it? Because now they're going to be like, oh, we arrested this one guy now. And it's like, it's good news. Like it almost feels like, what is that movie with Minority Report with Tom Cruise?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We caught this guy before he was going to do this thing, and you're like, oh,
Oh, they
gosh,
want to
this is-
get
Yeah,
there.
it's pre-crime.
I heard even Trump is like pretty pro like pre-crime stuff, but
It sounds like China. It just reminds me of
Yeah.
communist China. If you've ever read a book or a story from someone who was in the CCP and escaped, you can read all about what being under constant surveillance is like. It's horrible. I mean, they can even see what you're doing and downrate you to a point, like a social credit score type thing,
Without
where
even telling
you
you.
can't
Yeah.
where you can't buy beer at the store or whatever because maybe you had too many, but there's no reason why. Like you'll never know why your credits were taken or why you're downvoted or whatever they call it. You just are, and it's because they're watching you all the time.
Yeah. Oh, when you were talking about when they tell us stuff like that, it's going to a new level. I always take when we're told something like that as, guess what we've been doing for the last couple decades.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
We're now going to make it legal for us to do that, and we're telling you about it. Not that we haven't been doing it. Like she said,
Yeah.
the Patriot Act. I guarantee the NSA was all over that way before then.
Yeah,
I don't see why they wouldn't. So
Their only
It was written in
limitations
like a
would
day
have,
or something.
yeah, their only limitations would have been the technology they had. But other than
Yeah.
that, they were doing anything they could do. Yeah, all these three-letter agencies, they don't care about the law.
no.
I mean, they are the law, right? So so by the time, it gets announced to the public, it's kind of like the stuff when like, oh, we started cloning sheep. And you're like, okay, what else are you cloning now? Because if you cloned a sheep, like what else are you messing with?
That means you cloned one 20 years ago, and you're just now ready to tell us about it.
Yes. Yeah, 100%. So
I had this conversation too about talking about the AI thing. I use AI too a little bit. I made a song the other day. It sounds like AI. I mean, it's pretty good. It's getting a lot better, and the image generation is getting better, and and that's fine. Those are just tools. Like there's people on both ends of the spectrum where they're like, AI is the devil. It's a demon portal. Blah blah blah. Then the other people, they're like, AI is the future, and it's going to save us from Trump and everybody. I don't know. But again, somewhere in the middle, it's a tool, and I use it like that. But I think where we're going to get into trouble is when they finally come out with the AGI, artificial general intelligence, where for all intents and purposes, it's like sentient, which I don't think is possible, really, for a machine. But it could damn near seem like it
You
was.
could convince another person that it was sentient, though,
Yeah.
and make it do things out of compassion or just emotion.
But the conversation I was having, I was like, so if we get to play with these tools, because one of my friends who really loves music, and I'm like, hey, check out this song I made. And he's like, wow, that's pretty good, because I don't record music ever. And I'm like, no, it was AI, dude. And he's like, okay, I was wondering what was going on there. I was like, but it makes me think that if we're allowed to play with these little toys like that now that are so good and getting better, pretty sure it's been being used for a long time. Then you start thinking about all the events that happen, news articles, all these different things over the last
Yeah.
couple decades where you're like, if they had perfected AI, at least to even this point a decade ago, nobody would know. Nobody would even have that in the back of their head in 2015 that, oh, the news broadcast we just saw was actually 100% AI. They've done that. So what's going to stop they from doing it whenever they want to manufacture whatever they want? I don't know. Just shower thoughts again.
No, 100%. I agree with that, because it's funny, like, because I know that, is my cat getting on top over here?
Oh,
So like on these podcast apps I have, like you can AI your voice. So like if I ever had to like add something into the podcast, or I could it sounds just like me. I sound like a little bit different, but enough. And then you think like all the deep fakes and stuff like that. I remember like my buddy Brian and I did a podcast a long time ago. We were talking about Project Bluebeam, and everyone's so sure that it's going to be holograms in the sky. And I'm like, they don't have to do that anymore. People don't even hardly go outside. You just make fake stuff on their screens. And like, if the news says it's real, then that's enough, right? That'll be enough to get people to react to it. I think that, I'm not one of those people. Like I remember at the beginning when people like Elon Musk were saying that AI was summoning the demon. And so people are like, oh yeah, like the ghost of the machine, could it really be demons inside there? I mean, I do believe if a computer ever became sentient, it would have to be some kind of a spirit inside that. But that being said, it's like kind of like a Ouija board, where like a Ouija board, is not filled with a demon. I think the demon is interacting with the intent of the person trying
Using it
to,
as a vector to come through or whatever.
yeah, it's kind of like it's consent, right? So you try to summon some spirit to move this thing, and the spirit shows up, but it's not in that. So in the same way that if you could use a computer to summon that demon, if you, with the intent, this is real, this is going to give me knowledge. Yeah, I think we could be deceived, but it's not in the computer. It's like, it's in your head. It's like,
Right.
it's all around you, like trying to influence you in that kind of way. But yeah, I mean, it's obviously, it's like the world is quickly changing fast. But I mean, like, but all that being said, it's like, yeah, the fact that like Trump's doing it, it's like, yeah, you guys got, a lot of people got what they wanted, him winning. And I mean, I'm not sad that Kamala's not president,
Right.
but at the same time, it's like if Biden was doing some of the stuff that he's doing right now, people would be flipping out. But now I think
know.
everyone's like, they don't want, some people obviously are fair and they're going to criticize him when he does stuff wrong. And then, but other people are just saying, oh, well, did you want Kamala to be president? Like, no, but I don't have to defend him now.
Right. Yeah, I don't know what to think of it. Like we were talking before the show about all the J6 prisoners getting pardoned, or most of them, whatever. Ross Ulbricht, that's a big one. I can't believe he was pardoned. I didn't think Trump would actually do that. But yeah, there's so many things going on that if it was exactly the opposite and it was a Democrat in there, it doesn't even matter which Democrat, there would be the exact same people completely against it. And I even heard a clip from Alex Jones the other day saying that he was kind of okay with mRNA vaccine technology as long as it was used correctly. That was kind of paraphrasing what he said.
He
But
said that?
I'm like, dude, 5 days ago, if Biden would have said that exact thing, you'd been like, oh, cancerous, blah, blah, blah. I don't have anything against Alex Jones. It's just weird to see somebody like that come out and be like, well, if it's used correctly, because the government has such a great track record of using technology in a good way for us. And if it can do the mRNA, they're mRNA AI vaccines. So they're basically saying we can do a blood test. AI can skim for like tumor particles and within 48 hours have it diagnosed and have a vaccine for it for cancer. In theory, that would be amazing. How many years are we from that actually happening before trial and error and everything else they want to do is implemented? It's just, I just don't trust
Yeah, it
them.
sounds too good to be true.
Right.
No, I mean, yeah, no way. I mean, like I said, if you try to make a picture of somebody and they got 6 fingers or a weird face with AI, so like, no, I don't necessarily trust them. They might get it close, but I mean, like, obviously, like what close
It
only
told me
counts
to
in
put gasoline in my pancake
and hand
mix.
grenades and horseshoes. Like, so
Yeah.
Yeah.
So no, we're talking about like something serious like that. No, I mean, like, I guess we probably don't want to get into the medical stuff too much, but I remember like at the beginning of that, I was just like, I'm going to be the last person that gets whatever that is because I'm not going to be your guinea pig. So like whatever you guys are talking about, like that, I'm not going to do that. I'm not getting in line first. So yeah, like no, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I don't trust any of this stuff. I mean, I definitely don't trust them. And yeah, like it's weird to say that because it's like, oh, if it's right. I mean, but all right, but isn't that kind of what we're all talking about? Like, I don't know that it's going to be used rightly. We've got recent precedents that it's not going to be used right. So why would you trust them? So overall, it'd be like, no. So I can't trust them. So therefore, no.
I mean, even if the previous jabby stab wasn't causing a lot of problems, it still didn't work for the problem they said it did, which means either somebody's still lying or they're incompetent or both. And through this whole thing the last 5 years, I've just kind of carried on doing the exact same thing I always do and been just fine. So I don't understand how they get people in such a fit of like, I need to get this newest thing because I might die from bird flu or, whatever it is. I don't understand at this point, 5 years later, how people could still be falling into that. But not to pivot too much, but I also saw a clip the other day of a lady from CERN she said she worked at CERN saying, oh, this week, right current when we're recording this, there's going to be the planetary alignment of like 6 or 7 different planets that you can see with the naked eye or whatever. Basically, she said, just want to make sure CERN is not powered on. It isn't us. It just does that. Isn't that the most bizarre thing for somebody to just randomly come declared to the world?
Wait, she's saying that CERN didn't align the planets together? Is that what she
Yeah,
just said?
she's coming out preemptively saying, just so you know, the planet alignment, not us.
We're
Maybe
totally
she
not doing any
trolling?
rituals here. Don't worry. Just don't even bother checking up. We're fine over here. Yeah, it's weird. It's like these weird occultists. It's like what? Yeah, what does it have to do with CERN? Like planets? Like, well, I don't even know why that would be a thing. Yeah, it's kind of like, well, I wasn't worried until you just said something. Like, why would I think that was a thing? I mean, I know
Kind of
that.
sounded like trolling or playing into some of the crazier ends of the internet, you know, like, oh, there's a planetary alignment, must be CERN. There's people that think like that.
Or playing into the conspiracy theorists who go way over the top with
That's what I
every
mean, yeah.
single thing. Yeah.
Well, it's kind of like the Denver airport, right? That they literally have like posters
leaned
up.
into that.
It's like, yeah, this is like the Illuminati headquarters and all this kind of stuff, and you're like, yeah, but it probably is though. Like, like you guys are weird enough to like it's kind of like you're not going to throw me off with your sarcasm. Like I still see all the weird stuff you guys have done. Like I'm not going to ignore that. So it's kind of like, yeah, that maybe it is cover for the people who want to mock people with tinfoil hats on like us. But at the same time, it's like, but I got some real stuff about you
Yeah.
guys.
But there's a
you
good reason to
weirdos.
look. No, I get it.
You
Yeah, so,
understand
like,
our
the-
curiosity.
Yeah, so we don't trust you. I've often wondered about that. Like I've compared like the stuff at CERN to like the movie The Prestige, which is kind of a weird, might sound like a reach, but I was just saying like that in the movie The Prestige, you have like the Tesla character who can do like actual magic. He's like a wizard in the thing, but the magician gets the magic, and another guy tells him to cover it up, dress it up, make it look more like a trick. And I was thinking, like, that sounds like what they're doing there. So what if they were doing some kind of witchcrafty thing over there, and the white lab coats dressed it up to say, "Oh no, this is totally science. We're not doing rituals or anything like that. This is totally normal." And then, but it's not, because
No,
it's
not
it's
at all.
palatable for the normies when they're doing science there. But if they were doing occult stuff, they would not be okay with it, because like you have the Shiva statue. It's like on the site has the temple to Apollyon on it. They have like dark matter day there on October 31st and weird stuff like that. They had the with the Gothard Tunnel like opening ceremony that's right by there, doing all the weirdest occult stuff. And you're like, no, this is not science. This is weird. I mean,
I mean,
even
if
the
they were
name
trying to
CERN,
stay incognito, they're not doing a good job.
no,
so-
even the name CERN, it's like, so one of the deities like in that area would be
Cernunnos.
Cernunnos. Yeah, so
Yeah,
like
Cernunnos.
it has nothing to do with what the name of the place is. So like it's all weird.
Yeah.
So when we question that kind of stuff, it's like, oh yeah, you guys are weird, but you're like, but you guys are not like superstitious, right? So like, why are you doing stuff on Halloween and calling it Dark Matter Day and like dressing up and stuff? It's weird. Yeah, it's not science. It's weird, and I think that the CERN could be the cover for all the other weird stuff they're doing, and I believe it is.
I mean, it seems like, and it's also, isn't it in Switzerland? Like,
Mm-hmm.
famously neutral in wars and home of some of the richest people on earth. And
Oh gosh,
that's where Davos meets.
Oh yeah.
Or-
The world elites and stuff like, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, yeah.
Exactly. How they managed to not get involved in World War II and stuff like. Actually, I probably don't want to derail the podcast, but I was watching that Europa, the last battle. I was watching that. Have you guys seen that thing?
Is it a movie?
It's like a documentary, and it's kind of like, let's just say it's a
Somebody told me about that. Yeah, I haven't seen it though.
I haven't
you
seen
should
it.
you should probably watch it. It's kind of sickening, and also kind of like, because it kind of rings true, a lot of it. Let's just say, like, yeah, if you guys haven't seen it, but no, the point is, like, some of the stuff in World War II, it's like revisiting kind of like, once you start to see the lies in 2020, right? So then you're like seeing the lies going forward, but then you start looking back, and then you keep going back, and you keep going back, and you're like, oh my gosh, like I'm like sick to my stomach of all the things they've told us over the years about like what's true and what's not true, and you're like, yeah, a lot of stuff starts to make sense.
Yeah,
Sorry.
and it's weird because you can't even like my parents, they're old enough to have seen a lot more than I have, and they still just seem like I don't know if they just don't care because they're getting old or what, but it's not even something they would talk about. It's just, yes, we went to the moon. Yes, this happened. Reagan, and it was just very mainstream, I guess. And they are boomers, so I guess that's where that stereotype comes from. Is okay, boomer, because you're not even paying attention to what's going on, or whatever. But it seems like the last couple years or the last couple decades, the way technology has progressed is heading towards a singularity. And if you believe Ray Kurzweil from where was he from? Not Google. Anyway, he's one of these guys that thinks there's going to be a singularity of man merging with machine by like 2045. I don't remember the exact date, but everyone thought he was full of crap. But now the last couple years, you see 2020 to 2022 to now, it seems like every couple years it's exponentially growing the way the technology is to where it's almost having or so in the last 2 years, I'm just trying to find a good way to say this. In the last 2 years, AI has grown crazy.
Mm-hmm.
So I think in the next 6 months, it's going to be even crazier. And it looks like everything's pushing towards that. A lot of people on the same team now with Musk and, Ellison and all these guys pushing towards kind of this same goal. I don't know. What do you see the next couple years or even couple months looking like with Big Daddy Trump in there?
I don't know. I've been feeling like the kind of the pinch and just the way that like I don't know what he's going to do to kind of like right this ship as far as like the economy goes. Like so I'm kind of just seeing like this whatever this was before just doesn't seem sustainable. Like and everyone's been talking about the debt and things like that. But I mean, I know with like inflation and how home prices and things like that, I'm just like things are just not going to be able to stay the same. So I'm really curious what he plans to do to try to fix these things. I mean, maybe he's got a solution. I don't know. But going forward, I kind of wondered recently, just thinking that like the way that the American dream's been presented to people, it just doesn't exist anymore. But I mean, like, but it's funny, they don't admit that. Like that nobody says like, hey, son, you're never going to be able to afford to buy a house because if you see how much they cost right now and all the interest rates and stuff like that, but we still want you to go to college anyways, and then you can get in lots of debt and then get a job that does not pay back anywhere close to the debt and then not be able to go forward. It really does feel like that whole idea of the World Economic Forum that you'll own nothing in 2030 and be happy. I don't know if anyone's going to be happy, but they're right about the first part. Nobody's going to own anything. I see apartment buildings going up everywhere. And what I started to think like that, so if you kind of have some generational wealth, obviously you'll be able to have a house, right? Like parents handing you down a house. If you got a house now, you'll be able to have a house. But it almost feels like that. I'm sure a lot of people who are middle class have been feeling this for a long way. It's like they don't want us. They don't want middle class people. So it feels like that if the influx of like immigration and then inflation, eventually like the middle class, like, we were talking about how old I am earlier. So like I'm getting a little long in the tooth, so I won't be here. And then the next generation, like my kids, will not be able to afford all the things. So like I'm kind of curious. It's like, are they waiting for like a generation or two to die out before they're really willing to accept the neural links and whatever else kind of things that they're trying to push? Because everyone's going to be on some kind of basic income because AI is taking all the jobs, and then there's just going to be some kind
out
of
how to divvy it up to everybody equally or whatever.
Right. So maybe it's going to be a situation where like, oh, AI is going to take your job. So the perfect job would be if you can like merge with AI and then you can be better than a computer because you can. I don't know.
It seems like the goal. That's the Ray Kurzweil thing, like the transhumanism, living forever, uploading your consciousness, that whole idea we've been fed through sci-fi for years now. And don't get me wrong, I love those types of movies, but I don't want it in. Some things should just stay movies. Don't bring that into the real world.
Well, yeah, we know. It's like, like if you believe in a God, I don't believe that's a real option. That's a secular humanist option that you could live forever. I think that for most of us, it's like, honestly, it's like the older you get, it's like, I don't know if I would want to live forever. It's like, I remember my buddy Brian was talking about, I think we'd live to be about 140 if we did X, Y, and Z. It's like, why would I want to live to be 140? I was like,
I always say that too. Have you seen 80?
Yeah.
You want
He
70
says that
more?
all the time. That's so funny.
No, I think God did a great job. About 80 to 100 years, wrap this shit up. Let's go home.
Yeah, it's a sad reality. So like I'm in my mid 40s now, and it's like I remember just the different kinds of things I cannot do that I used to do, and it's like I'm mostly healthy, but I have certain things like where you're starting to break down a little bit, and you're like, No, I don't want it. I don't want this to continue to
So
like
it
this.
begins.
Yeah, right. Exactly. It's like so this is what they meant by getting old sucks.
Yeah.
But so that being said, like I don't know. I don't know how it would be, but I know that right now things are kind of a grind. So I could see people accepting something they were it was proposed to being better. And
Oh,
I
yeah,
think that's the
it's
whole idea of like the merging with some kind of technology. I mean, I think that we all use our phones and stuff for escapism at some point. So like, what if you could just do that wherever you're at? I mean, like the
yeah.
Google Glasses back in the day, and it's like eventually it's like I could imagine kids who are taught like that they're born with like a tablet in their hand. Like eventually you just get this little thing in your head, and you can just close your eyes, and you can see that tablet.
And the weirdest part is it sounds like a Black Mirror episode, and they were ahead of their time for sure. But like where they put the thing on their temple and they're in a different dimension, basically. I mean, you probably won't even need that if they're actually putting chips into your meat brain. Like, why would you even need anything external at that point? But it is I wouldn't say scary. I mean, I'm probably not going to be a part of any of that. So do what you want, people. But I think it does have to come to a point where everything is so much suck that they're like, we'll do anything to get out of this. And we're kind of there right now. Everything, I mean, that's a first world problem, but eggs are $12 a carton.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
everything just sucks. Everything taxes and it never ends, and your power rates keep going up, and then they black you out, and all this stupid. I mean, how far can you push people before the Hegelian dialectic kicks in, and they go, "Don't worry, we have the solution for you."
Right, exactly.
Fixed
Well, I think
it.
that's exactly what. Did you see that movie Ready Player One? You guys
Oh,
seen
yeah.
that?
Yeah. Yep.
Well,
Now, they made that
that's
look
what
fun, though,
that's,
right?
That's what that movie is, right? It's like they're literally living in like trailers stacked upon trailers. They're living in just squalor, and they're just whatever money they have, they're going into the Oasis, this metaverse or whatever, and that's where they're getting all their enjoyment. And like that's kind of like the main
That's
character.
Their
It's like-
life. Yeah.
yeah, I mean that is. I mean, like I said, these kind of movies like that. I mean, that's the kind of thing where you're saying like Black Mirror is ahead of its time, but it's like we were just doing on one of our last podcasts. We were talking about like the CIA and these kind of government agencies are literally making these scripts and they're putting them in the zeitgeist. So like, are they good at guessing what's going to come down the pipe, or are they telling us this is what you'll want? Because it's
Right.
funny because like you watch a movie like Ready Player One, you're like, it's almost like the artificial reality they're living in is so cool. It's almost like I guarantee you that you could say, would you like to live in that double wide that's six trailers high, and then be able to go in the Oasis? I mean, what percentage of like young people would say yes?
So many.
Most of them.
Gen Z. Oh yeah, they'd be like, hell yeah, sounds great.
Yeah,
Or what's
exactly.
the newest generation?
Is it
Alpha.
Y?
Oh, Alpha.
No, I think it. So when you were saying, does it take a couple of generations for people to accept that? You might be right. Like we might be the last generation. Z or Z, whatever, in Alpha are going to be the ones that are like, hook me up to the Matrix, bro.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
stick all those things in my back, put me in a tub of slime, and I'll be good to go.
Yeah, exactly. You make me that battery like in the Matrix.
Yeah.
Eat that fake steak.
As long as I can enjoy the steak and the wine and not have to go to work. Which is weird, though, because even in the Matrix, they had jobs. Remember, because he said the first iteration of the Matrix didn't work. It was too perfect. Everybody had to have something to do, so we made jobs.
Oh yeah.
Well, you know what that was about, though, right? That he was like that. I believe that Matrix was like a Gnostic movie, and he's basically it's like God telling like man, I made you a perfect place, and you guys rejected it, so then I had to make this place
Yeah.
because you guys thrive on me. So it's like he's literally describing we made you the Garden of Eden, but you guys didn't want it. So then
Yeah.
eventually now you're here because you guys
Now,
thrive on
now you're
misery.
stuck with Mr. Anderson.
Yeah, exactly. It's funny that like, but that's kind of like what he's saying. It's like that you still need jobs, you still need all this other stuff. Like you're living in a computer and you're not actually living. You're still, you're Neo going to his cubicle, knowing there's
Yeah.
something more than this, but really not knowing what it is.
You're not even taking full advantage of being in the Matrix. Like, you can jump off walls and stuff. Like, but everybody's asleep basically. That's another that movie's so good on so many fronts. It's amazing.
Yeah, do think that's like we use that as an example so much, but it does really feel like that when you're having conversations like this and you're trying to explain it to people who are like that are still plugged in, it is like that these people are not your friends. Like they'll literally fight you while you're trying to wake them up. And I mean, like obviously, I'm sure everybody probably listening here can relate to that. Is that, and it's like anybody can be a Mr. Smith, like at any moment, where it's like the programming just kicks in, and then they're just like, "What did you just say? Support Ukraine? What are you talking about? Like you guys are still listening to the news? Like I can't believe you guys are still saying that." But it's like whatever the current thing is like they think that they're awake. But no, they can go right back into it when something aligns with what they've been taught. The programming kicks in, and they believe it.
Yeah,
Yeah, we've seen that.
a lot.
Yeah.
What was the other? So the other Black Mirror was the one where they basically 1 to 5 star you. We see that everywhere now. Our podcasts, our Yelp, whatever. But they, if you remember that episode, listeners, where they 1 to 5 star, basically anybody, like somebody pisses you off and you're like 1 star.
Oh yeah, it's called
And-
Nosedive.
Yeah, if it's too low, it's social credit score, and this is like I said. Black Mirror is ahead of its time, but only by a couple of years, because it was like a social credit score type of episode. But then we were watching The Orville last night, the Seth MacFarlane show, and they had kind of the same thing. They go to this place where everybody has an up and a down button on their shirt.
Yeah, they're like
Everybody has to
predictive
wear
programming,
one.
like seeding it into us so that we're going to be like, oh, we're going to get that. It's just like in the Orville. That's cool.
Well, yeah, and
I mean, we're not
but
gonna
if
say
you
that,
get
but-
below so many downvotes, then you have to go to get corrected. Does that sound like a re-education camp or anything to you? But yeah, they basically jolt their brains
gosh.
so that they're lobotomized and they're like, I'm happy and healthy. It's a creepy episode if you think about it. And this was 4 years ago probably when that
Yeah,
episode
I'm sure
came
they were
out,
still
but-
doing this shit in China, but
What do you think the possibility of something like that, like an actual in the States, like some kind of social credit score? I know it's kind of in there already. Like you can get canceled, if you get enough people pissed off on social media, and if your name is big enough. But like, what do you think the actual possibility of that coming is? Because it seems
I would
not
say
far
that-
off.
I would say that the possibility is, I would say it's probably 100%. I mean, like I don't know when that'll
Eventually.
be though. Yeah, eventually it will happen. I mean, yeah, like I said, you've already talked about the precedent for it. Would be like that. Oh, you've had this offensive position online. Like this opinion is not tolerated. So therefore, we're going to take you're not going to be able to use a credit card. I can't remember what there was somebody on Rogan that was saying like that. Yeah, there's all these people who were debanked, and so like you can't put your money in a bank anymore.
Or
And
PayPal screwed people. Patreon, a lot of places.
Yeah, so like, but I mean, like to not be able to actually put your money anywhere and like be able to get normal. I mean, a lot of these people, I guess, are doing okay, so they could probably maybe figure it out somehow. But I mean, like if a normal person was debanked, we would be totally screwed. And so like,
It'd be
so
a
that
pain in the ass, yeah.
and I guess I really forget the guy's name though, but it was interesting because he was saying like it's way more common than you would know, because obviously you'd only hear about like the people like Alex Jones, like so obviously big high profile person, like the government's coming after this person for things he said, which I thought free speech was the thing here, maybe not, but but yeah, so then you have other people being debanked, and then what happens after that, like that. So we're really only, well, I mean, we're not far off, because I mean, I remember thinking about like when I was first making TikTok videos, and TikTok is a good example of like, well, I got in trouble. Like, well, what'd you say? I don't really know. Like, I'm not
They
sure.
didn't really tell me.
Well, yeah, we can't. Yeah, like I got banned on TikTok with over 200,000 followers like last year,
Ugh.
and I don't know what I said. I was putting out old videos, like stuff like that. So it was like when they just banned me, like I didn't even know what I did. I was thinking like I've said way worse stuff like 6 months ago. Like I don't know why they banned me for anything now. And I think that like you were saying, like that we don't really know. Otherwise, you just got in trouble, and then you have to start over again.
Well, they don't
So-
want to tell you specifics because then it would fall apart pretty easily. Like, oh, it was medical misinformation. And you're like, I quoted a Bible verse. Oh, so they can't tell you what the exact thing. I mean, Mike Adams got kicked off of somewhere for literally quoting a Bible verse. Said it was medical misinformation, took the video down. So they can't be too specific because then you can.
Well, then they
if
can't
the
be
appeal
arbitrary.
process were fair.
They can't.
then,
They can't.
yeah.
Well, I mean, if they had standards, then then you could actually hold them to those standards. But they don't. They don't want that. But I
very
remember just
general.
thinking. I just thought it was really interesting because so I started to get into this sphere of I make content. I have friends that make content, pretty big followings, and we're all kind of dealing with the same issues. Oh, I'm shadow banned. Oh, I got strikes. Oh, I got my account got banned. And then I'm talking to my mother-in-law, and she's got zero, following. And then she's suspended on Facebook. And I started talking to my dad, and he was like, he was suspended on Facebook at one point. I'm like, this is really weird that people are starting to normalize this idea of I made this offensive opinion on the social media app, and now I can't actually speak. When it's yeah, I mean, I get it. If I have 200,000 followers, I could see if I was really saying things that were inflammatory, I could see them wanting to limit that. But then
Right.
you're just talking about some boomer who nobody's listening to anyways. And so it's to me, that's what I was thinking. It's it's normalizing the idea of that people getting banned, shadow banned, and so you take it to the next level of oh, well, now I can't go get an Uber because I said this bad thing, because the Uber driver wouldn't want to be around me because I've said things he wouldn't like.
That's exactly
Yeah, so
how
I mean,
that
I
episode of the
thi-
Orville went.
Yeah, so I mean, it is kind of funny though, seeing that after TikTok got banned for 5 minutes, then it's back, and then right before that, Mark Zuckerberg is out on Rogan and some of these other shows saying, "No, guys, I'm totally like you. Look at my hair. I let my hair grow out. I got this chain
I'm
on.
working
Look
out
at me.
now."
I'm working
This
out. Yeah,
guy.
I'm totally human."
No more
And-
fact checkers. I'm totally
And I'm all
base-pilled
about
now.
free speech too. And then this happens, and so it does feel like they're trying to say the right things, but it is kind of the one hand's doing this and the other hand is doing this. It's oh yeah, by the way, we're putting in an AI police state.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what else is AI going to see? Maybe that's like I said, that a lot of people do believe that's the start of that's what we've been taught about places like China, that
Right.
oh, you showed up on the screen, you were doing this thing, and now all of a sudden you're downvoted.
Yeah. But if it's the fact checkers or TikTok, they won't even tell you. They just send you a bill and be like, you were caught doing something that goes against the CCP or whatever we call it here at the time.
Yeah, whatever they
here's
do.
a fine, and also you can't use Uber.
But they won't tell you what it is
Right.
because then you can correct it though.
Right.
You won't ever do that again. And the state of constant confusion. Can you imagine constantly getting downvoted for no reason? Just like your show, just 1 stars here and there, and you just no feedback. Wouldn't you be like, what the hell is going on? This
If
is
it comes
so
to that
crazy.
and we're still alive, I'm royally screwed, and so are a lot of other people, and we can go start our commune then because we just won't be allowed in public.
I think that's what God wants anyway, though. We should turn our faces from all of this and say, you know what? It doesn't really matter. It really
I'm
doesn't.
moving
At
into
the
the
end of the
forest.
day, I mean, we still have to live our lives, but I don't know. I think there are more important things than having a house. And I'm not saying I would own nothing and be happy, but I would detach from everything. We could totally live in the woods.
Yeah. Well, and we wouldn't need crypto over there anyway,
Yeah.
right? I'd be like, here's a rock. Do you want to go
Or
do some work
jobs.
for me?
Yeah.
When we talk about crypto, though, as we get ready to close out here, I know it's very late there. So Trump apparently just signed another EO saying banning CBDCs, which is weird because just over the weekend he launched the Trump coin, which went from 18 cents to about $70 a coin overnight. There was 400 something millionaires made overnight on the weekend because they bought a couple $1,000s worth of Trump coin. Good for them. Makes me mad, but he's banning a CBDC, so central bank digital currency. But I would argue we're already in a de facto CBDC as it is. When's the last time? I mean, some people use cash, but I get direct deposit, then I pay my bills online, and every time I go to the store, I'm using my card. I'm not actually. It's not money. It's zeros and ones bouncing around in computers everywhere. So I mean, that seems like a digital currency to me already. It's just that if you want, you can take some paper out of the machine, which I don't ever do. So what are your thoughts on the CBDC in general and where you think that's going?
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you the same way that I've thought for a long time that dang, if you already know that there's really nothing backing our paper currency, then what's holding up any of it? It's faith in the system. I mean, I remember was last year, or it was a year and a half ago, that there was like a run on a few banks, and like people went to try to take their money out of the banks, and the banks folded because if everyone decided they want to take their money out of the banks, there would be no money. There'd be no banks because they would all fold because there's no money in them, or at least not to the level that they could pay people
Not anywhere
back.
close. We saw that with those bank closures a couple years ago.
Yeah, so it really
There's
is
nothing
kind of
there.
amazing. It's like it's kind of interesting, like the way Jesus puts it, where it's like you can't serve both, both God and money, and it's
Yeah.
like really is like people do put their faith in the system, but it's like there's really no reason to, because the one day they say that if the news, like I said, the news says to panic, there's no money in the banks. Well, it's already true. Like I mean, I'm just telling you that right now. There's no money in there. So like but when they tell everyone to panic, just in the same way they're saying like, oh, there's no toilet paper at the stores. Well, there will definitely be no toilet paper if they say that because
Right.
it'll all be gone. Yeah, the crypto stuff, it's just like it is such a skeezy thing because even like the Bitcoin, I remember I owned some Bitcoin at one point, and was it when inflation really started to kick in a couple of years ago, and I was like, wait a minute, why isn't it now worth more? And it was dropping. I was just like, we've been scammed. Like this is not really what they say. I mean, obviously Bitcoin's worth a lot right now, but I remember thinking like, this is exactly what this is supposed to hedge against was inflation because this was supposed to be limited. It was supposed to be worth a lot. And then you see like guys like Elon Musk who could just like hint at a coin being worth something and he could just drive the value way up. Obviously a guy like Trump and stuff like that. And you see like the Hawk Tuah girl and all this stuff. And you're like, this is so skeezy. Like this whole thing is just so corrupt.
It's
and
just
like
a
how
digital
easy it could
Ponzi
be.
scheme. It's the
Yeah,
same exact like approach, but just using something that's backed by nothing. Even Bitcoin, I will argue, what is it backed by? Computing power?
Yeah, I know exactly. Like, what does that mean to me? I think the truth of the matter is like that they're really just stocks, So like you can,
Stonks.
yeah. So you can. It's meant to be a currency, right? So Bitcoin is supposed to be something you can pay with. Yeah, but how many people actually pay with it? I mean,
People that use Silk Road. And then Ross got locked up for it.
Yeah,
Government doesn't like decentralization, so anytime somebody steps out of the lines a little too far and they see a danger, they're gonna make an example out of that dude, and they did 10 years ago. He's been in prison. It's crazy.
Right. So I mean, for the most part, it's just it's another thing in your stock portfolio. It's like it's not anything different than that. So, but this one seems to be able to be manipulated really crazily, and like we really don't know how it is. And then obviously, then you see like the worst examples, like the Hawk Tuah girl, the Hawk coin or whatever, and you're just like, this is really messed up. And so, I mean, I guess the thing is like, how do you really regulate this so much? I mean, I do feel like that the people who are scammers in this really need to go to jail. Like,
But yeah, I mean, Sam Bankman-Fried apparently went to jail sharing a crib with Diddy. Who knows? No, but I heard somebody. I'm not gonna pretend to know the ins and outs of crypto. I don't. It's over my boomer head, and I'm not even a boomer. But somebody was saying that the government can easily manipulate basically any coin they want because they can just print money and they can just go in and buy billions of these coins. That pumps the price up, and a bunch of people buy it, and then they pull the rug. And that's where you get a Hawk Tuah coin. It's actually not that difficult for people to do, but the masses that are watching Trump talk up Dogecoin are gonna go buy it.
right?
And
Yeah,
then-
100%. It's like that. I remember. I mean, obviously, once I did kind of understand all this kind of stuff, it'd be like that. Oh, we're going to hedge against these banks. It's like, but the banks have all the money, so they could buy more coin than you. So, do you think like the central bankers are not buying the Bitcoin?
Yeah, it's another
Like-
deal for them.
Yeah, like you know what I'm saying. Like we cannot compete with the Rothschilds. So, like, you think they're going to get caught flat-footed?
Or whoever
With
their
it-
boss is.
Well, yeah, with any coin. No, so obviously they have so much more money to just swing these coins to whatever they're doing. But I don't know. I mean, obviously it's funny because I've been trying to buy some more stocks and stuff lately. And but sometimes I'm like, should I buy crypto? But like I could buy this stock. And I'm like, I don't even know I don't know why this would go up. Like that's the thing is like with the crypto, it's like, what am I even betting on? It really does feel like you're just going to Vegas and you're just putting some money on it, like a color, and you're
is.
saying,
Unless you have some insider knowledge, which apparently is illegal unless you're already rich, then it's totally fine. You can get away with it.
yeah, no, I mean, I think it's just, I don't know. I guess that's the thing. It's like that if there was a get rich quick thing or like a thing we could do, then we would do it. But it does feel like that. Yeah, the game is playing and we're playing. It's a rigged game and it's just like everything else.
Yep. And the more I don't want to say the older I get, but the more I experience life, the more it does seem like a huge game. It's almost comical. Like when you see some of this go on, I'm just like, oh, that silly game person running stuff. This is ridiculous again. And if that's you, God, well done. Masterful game you have going on here. Well, dude, I think. Oh, what's that?
No, I was gonna say I'm with Jen though. I would say that probably like a lot of us, as going back to that Matrix analogy, if we could disconnect from this and get out. I mean, like I think that's the problem. Is like that they do get that cord in you pretty tight, so it's like it's hard to leave this place. But yeah, I would totally be out of here if I could. I've been going out west and hiking and getting off the grid. I would do that in a second if I could today.
Yep. I know a lot of people are moving closer and closer to that idea, and I don't know, it might be coming soon. I mean, we've talked years ago about like the splitting of societies and how you have these people that want to live in the smart cities, in the grid, in the high rise and all that stuff, and then the people that want nothing to do with that. I think there is going to be a point where people are like, okay, we've had enough. We're going off into the countryside somewhere and
The countryside exists anymore.
milking cows and oh no, this is Bill Gates saying shit. We got to move a little bit.
These what are these genetically engineered mosquitoes on here? Oh no.
Yeah. Why does this have mechanical wings? Uh-oh, Bill Gates mosquitoes.
Yep.
Well, dude, thanks for coming on. I'll let you go. I know it's late over there, but yeah, everybody can find him on YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, anywhere else. JT follows JC.
Yeah, you can find me on Facebook and Rumble, Spotify, and Apple. And as you said, I changed from Decoding Babylon because I guess I didn't really love that name, and also I never even knew what that was. So I was doing podcasts, and I was like, "Is this decoding?" Because I did live streams, and I turned them into podcasts, and I did so many of them. I was just like, "Was this an episode of Decoding Babylon or not?" And I was like, "Yeah, it's weird." I just go by my name.
All one.
Yeah, my name is my brand. So if you want to listen to me talk on all kinds of podcasts, just look up JT Follows JC.
Hell yeah,
Nice.
dude. Well, thanks for coming on again.
thank you.
We'll talk again soon because it's always fun to catch up with you. But thanks everybody for listening out there and watching. We will see you next week.
Thank you for listening to Legit Bad. Please address all content grievances to gofuckyourself@yourmom.com. See you next week.